Hello dudes and dudes, this is Naed here to give you a tutorial on Painter 2016. The reason for that is that I've been using Painter for quite a long time. If I remember well, since version 8, at least definitely version 9, which had the freaky 9-finger head. Yeah, it did freak out a few people. Anyway, since I've been using it for a long time, I've been showing it to, well, a good deal of friends, and pretty much the answer I got from everybody, well, mostly everybody, was that, yeah, it looks nice, but it looks so complicated, and, I always said I would teach them how to use it, but once you get into it, it's not so bad. So this is me showing it to everyone at the same time through the magic of the internet. Yeah. So, so the structure of those tutorials, I'm going to try to keep those, fairly straightforward. Probably won't go into, merging the subjects. So yeah, we're gonna start with the interface, basically the welcome screen, which is that thing. So first thing that you should know, this is the interface you get when you open Painter for the first time. Well, Painter 2016 at least. So this is what it looks like. The welcome screen is pretty standard for pretty much any version, as far as I remember, any version of Painter. This one has a few added goodies, but pretty much works always the same way. So the first thing you might want to do is, if that kind of pop-ups annoys you, is turn it off. See that little check mark here? Show on startup. If you check it off like that, it won't open on startup every time. Check it back in. Every time you open Painter, the welcome screen will appear. So yeah, personal decision. It's up to you. Just in case you want it back, you can load it. Actually, I'm going to show that to you right now. Let's say I turn it off, and I turn it off there. And for some reason, I want it back. So what you do is you go to Help, and click on Welcome. And there it is. And it's back. So I use the welcome screen, so I want it to appear. So yeah, personal preference is up to you. So let's get into it. This Learn tab, this is new as far as I can remember to 2016. This is basically a few classes offered. Pretty sure that's from Corel directly. Corel is the company that makes Painter. So never really got into any of it. Can't speak for the quality of any of them, but they're available. You can get prices completely optional. That's up to you. So yeah, pretty much the same thing with Get Content. This is for brushes. Like, you get pretty weird brushes, like, well, photo portrait apparently. Not sure if they're actually worth the price. Same thing as the Learn one. Never bought any of them. I tend to make my own. But yeah, the interface is pretty helpful for that. I mean, you get an example here of what it can, well, the finished product, I guess, and little samples of what it could do. So let's move on to this one. Not sure what it does, but there. So basically, texture brush, more texture brush. So yeah, once again, 100% optional. You have a lot, and I do mean a lot, of brushes already included in 2016. Actually, they turned it down a bit in 2016, but even though there's less than in 2015, you can still load they actually, the Painter 2016 come with the 2015 brushes. You can load that up if you want the old brushes back. I'm gonna show that in another video. Then next, let's just skip this one and go to the Get Inspired. This is pretty standard to all, well, last few versions at least. So basically it's just a slideshow of cool pictures from cool people using Painter. They update it for every version, so yeah, sometimes they will have things that are, used using specific brush or new brushes from this version. So yeah, nice, just a little sit back, kick back, relax, look at cool stuff. Yeah, let's move on. So get started. This is pretty much the meat of the welcome screen. This is what you're going to use the most if you use the welcome screen at all. Pretty self-explanatory for most of that, but let's get into it anyway. So create new image. Create a new image. Duh. Pretty self-explanatory again. Recent document, just like every application ever. So what you used before, what you opened before actually, is gonna appear there. So I have a few there. Doesn't matter. Obviously, if this is the first time you open Painter, you won't get editing in there. Then open documents. So if you have, I don't know, something already created, like pictures, you want to open that, this is where you open it. Quick note, not Photoshop, Painter actually has support for Photoshop files, and I do mean .psd files. As far as I know, well, the last version of Photoshop I have is CS6, so I'm not really up to date on that, but as far as I know, it doesn't work the other way around. So if you want to work on a file in both Painter and Photoshop, you can save it as PSD. Some features will get funky, like the layers effects and things like that from Photoshop. Not really transferring very well in my experience anyway, but most of the time works well enough. Moving on, this document templates. This is the oddball, I guess. I'm pretty sure you can do something like that in Photoshop too, but anyway, basically this is create new image plus. So what it does is, let's say you make comics. You want to, you don't want to create a new page, create the settings for your page. I mean, it's a comic, it needs to be pretty standard. So with document templates, you can create a file with the paper texture, resolution, if you want guides in there. Basically, it's like a pre-made new canvas that you can set up however you want and set it up as a template. So every time you work on the new page, you open up the template, and it's just pre-arranged page. Not mandatory, pretty useful if you tend to work in a certain canvas setup. Other than that, don't worry about it. Next, we have brush tracking. If you ever used, well, as far as I know, pretty much any Wacom tablets. I think it's there from the beginning. Anyway, it's just to adjust the pen pressure, the scale, things like that, to adjust the stylus, so it fits more to your stroke. Then we've got color management. This is a bit more complicated. I'm gonna make a video about that to explain you how it works. But long story short, basically it's managing the colors for well, I was gonna say print, but it does work also for the screen itself. Well, basically it's you choose a standard, a range of colors. You get a few standards, and each standard has a range of colors, and if you choose a certain standard for I don't know, let's say serial RGB. That's more for internet. Then you have another standard for printing, a certain type of picture. Anyway, like I said, I'll get into that in another video later. Yeah, pretty complicated. Then on the right here we have the workspaces. Those are basically just pre-arranged interface. Not really something I use. I tend to make my own, like, completely custom. But if you want to, you know, like the new to Painter one can be useful. If you never use Painter, it's gonna make a very, well, actually let's just load it up now. There. And there it is. So you get the little hints. It's simplified, very clean, barely anything interface. It's a bit too simplified for me. New brushes is going to be, well, the new brushes from 2016. Then you have illustration, which is, I don't really know what makes it special. Let's have a look. Oh, okay. So basically just your brush, layers, channel, and strokes. Anyway, yeah, it's pretty much just, you know, it's customization. You do it however you want. Let's just go put it back in default. And let's load back. Oh, by the way, I'm missing a bit of the interface here because I have two screens and it loaded on the other screen. So let's bring it back right here. And that little one right here. Right, sorry about that. Then let's go back to the welcome screen. And yeah, so let's do a quick show of what, well, I'm not going to get into the workspace, but let's go over what that does quickly. Create new image. So choose a name if you want. If your preset, it's pretty self-explanatory. It's kind of like a template, but never really work with that. But anyway, then width, height actually. Sorry for the bad English. I'm the French kind of Canadian, in case you didn't know. Then you've got resolution. Yeah, pretty standard. You can choose from a few measurements and pixel per inch or pixel per centimeter, but we are in North America here, and so pixel per inch, PPI in short, is pretty much the standard. Then we've got color and paper. Color, pretty simple. It's basically the color of the canvas. You can change if you want a specific color for whatever reason. Yeah, nothing permanent, but you can change it afterwards if you want. Really, this is just preference. It doesn't matter. This, though, the paper. This is a bit, as far as I know, there's nothing like that in Photoshop. Actually, as far as I know, there's nothing like that in any art program, like Art Rage or Clip or Manga Studio. I think it's only in Painter. I could be wrong, but I didn't really look up everything else. It doesn't really matter to me. Anyway, so what this does, it's gonna load up a texture in your canvas, and some brushes will pick it up, and you will have a specific texture on your brush. So let's see, like here we can see that I have a 2B pencil. Pencil tends to pick up the texture of the paper. So you can choose from a list of papers. You can actually download more. You can actually make your own. We're going to get into that later. For now, just, you can select from a bunch of regular papers. Well, mostly regular. I mean, they can look pretty weird, but marble substrate. Okay. And, you know, just options. It's nice to have. It can look pretty wonky. You get watercolor papers, and you get pretty much like I said with the well, the brushes. You get resource from 2015. Nice to have. So yeah, basically what this is gonna do is pick up, well, create a texture for some of your brush. Just the thing to remember is not every brush will pick up that texture. I mean, you have to think of that as think of Painter as a traditional media emulator. So if you use a thick layer of paint on a canvas, well, let's face it, the paint will cover the texture. Same thing will happen in Painter. So by the same logic, if your stroke, well, actually if your brush is not loaded with a lot of paint, at the end of your stroke, it's gonna have barely enough paint to actually make a mark. And yes, Painter will actually pick up the texture of the paper at that part. Pretty cool. Don't have to use it if you don't want to. You can actually add texture afterwards if you prefer to work like that. Preferences, options, all good. So let's go back to the welcome screen. Boom. Well, recent documents. Yeah, everybody knows what recent documents is. Open. I'm not gonna even go to that. Document templates. Yeah, pretty sure this is the default one. It comes with Painter by default. Let's just try to open it, see what it is. Yeah, and then let's just get into the specifics. So yeah, like it says, 810 by 572 ppi. So pretty much what I said, just pre-decided canvas. Doesn't really matter. It's up to your preferences, you know. So moving on, then we have the brush tracking. I'm not gonna get in depth into that now. I'm gonna make another video later. Long story short, you stroke into that thing, it's gonna record your pressure, your speed. Just do some little, simple strokes, fill it out, regular strokes. So just like imagine you're writing or drawing something or painting, whatever you do, and the program will adjust. Sorry about that. Will adjust the pressure and sensitivity of, well, pretty much every brush at the same time. Yeah, like I said, I'm not gonna go into that a lot right now, so let's just go click on OK. Move back into the welcome screen. Color management. Like I said earlier, this is pretty complicated stuff. So I'm just for now, default RGB profile. That means every RGB picture, but basically pretty much every picture you open or create new image, is going to be in Adobe or Adobe. Never knew how it was pronounced. Anyway, let's say it's Adobe. So Adobe RGB 1998. This is a pretty standard color settings. This is the one I use. I think, if I remember right, Painter by default will be serial RGB. I think this one, not really sure. Anyway, it's one of the serial RGB, which is wouldn't say it's bad, but actually none of them are bad. They are specialized. They have their own purpose. So serial RGB, as far as I remember, is a simplified color palette for website use. Not really great when it comes to painting, so that's why I just suggest for now, go into your color management, change it to Adobe RGB 1998. This is standard, let's say, painting, drawing, colors. It doesn't cover everything. It's not, it's a middle ground. It's not too little colors. It's not too many colors. It's a good deal of colors. Yeah, well, it's a matter of preference, but let's just say for now, set it to Adobe RGB 1998. Click OK. We're not going to go into everything else there. And like I said, I'm going to come back to that later. So that pretty much does it for the welcome screen. So next time we are gonna dabble into the interface itself, like those things, all those little options, and all those little options there, and what that does. Well, if you can read, some of you will actually understand what it does. Good deal of options, but it's not too complicated. I mean, it's more intimidating than it really is. So, hope that was helpful to a lot of you. Keep artinating, folks, and see you next time. Bye bye.